Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery. Could you please be seated while Councillor Grievous delivers the blessing, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just bow our heads and say, Father, be with these councillors tonight so that they may serve their community well. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
First, I'd like to acknowledge that the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, who are the traditional owners of and custodians of the land on which we meet today, and we pay our respects to them, their culture and the elders past, present and emerging. It is now 7:01 and I declare the meeting open. Members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by the city staff. We have a full record of attendance apart from Councillor Betts, who has a leave of absence for this evening. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Aaron Adams has a disclosure of interest on item number 13.5.6, a direct financial interest. He is closely associated with a company that has submitted a tender, and he occasionally undertakes casual work with one of the companies that has submitted a tender. Thank you. We don't need anything for that, do we? No. That's all right. Thank you. You just have to leave for that one, obviously, Councillor Adams. Announcements of the presiding member. I just would like to announce the passing of Mr. Chris Beckett, who has been a volunteer with the Men's Shed for many years, as well as he's been key to our heritage advisory group for many years. So, and extend our sympathies on behalf of council to his family at this time. Thank you. No further announcements at this stage. Reports of delegates. Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's not a report, as for say, but I'd just like to apologise to the Chair and to yourself and the fellow councillors in regards to my attire this evening. It's pretty poor wearing what I'm wearing, but I've come straight from work, as everybody else has, but I was running late today, and frankly, if I went home and had a shower, I probably would have gone straight to bed and not made it tonight, so I'd rather be here. I did borrow some perfume off a lady to make sure I didn't smell or anything like that, but that's okay. Being last week was a Pride in Sydney, so that's fine. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Prior to actually making a comment, it's just very nice of Councillor Dewhurst to say that, because sometimes you can think of all those who may want to go, why isn't he dressed that way? So what a terrific explanation. I really enjoyed that. Councillors, last week, Councillor Patterson and I attended the zone meeting at the City of Armidale along with their Chief Executive Officer. And I just want to let you know that I'm not sure if this is going to embarrass Councillor Patterson, but you presented the key arguments extraordinarily well, and I thank you for your excellent debating skills on the night. For the record, we won the votes 5 votes to 4, but great, good arguments. Bearing in mind, of course, doesn't mean we always have to agree. And on a zone meeting, as you know, there's 5 councils represented and there's 2 councillors per council, so there's 10 at play. But so you don't always have to agree. But well done, Councillor Patterson, for your arguments, and I was hoping I was able to back you up as best as possible. On those arguments, one of them was our favourite one, which happens to hit the news within 24 to 48 hours, that is the basketball noise. You'll all be fully familiar with the fact that one of the key comments coming out was we want to make sure that you had to have a minimum of 100 metres distance before you could put on a basketball hoop and board. And the problem is, of course, roughly in the metropolitan area, there's actually only 3% of places where you could. And I know that even the former Wildcats captain Damien Martin was on the news saying, are you trying to kill basketball for all the kids in Western Australia? So bottom line being is we won the submission because we asked them to amend the noise regulations. So we want to have a minimum of 40 metres, so that otherwise literally most basketball hoops and boards in our city would have to be dismantled. So the noise regulations need to be dealt with so we can actually play basketball. And hopefully that will get through to the State Council, and hopefully they can get them to change those rules. Otherwise basketball, the play will be at risk. But other key issues were there was a motion to do with the advocacy position on the constitutional recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welga made a comment about through the enshrining of a voice to Parliament, but we actually amended that to simply state the constitutional recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and that was passed. And also main roads, and I noticed this was a commentary of our workshop prior, our meeting briefing session, I should say. The main roads draft roadside advertising policy and application guidelines, we had our amendment carried because they wanted to make sure that these signs were in the control of main roads and that everything would be a lot of red tape involved and that would be not supported. They think that the signs would mean that we're all at risk of car crashes, etc., when there's no actual empirical evidence to suggest, for example, the signs on the Kwinana Freeway, massive signs. Well, people fly down there every day. So anyway, we had that one supported as well. So we got the trifecta, 3 out of 3. And again, finishing on Councillor Patterson and your very good advocacy for the night. And thank you, Mr CEO, for your advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Dewhurst, he's indicated had something you've forgotten to tell us.
I'm sorry, there was, as the unofficial delegate for Gosnells, I think you'd like to know that there's, they haven't started filming yet, but they've got 2 locations in the city of Gosnells, one right in the middle of the city, not in the city centre, at a very nice house. So, are you aware where it is? Oh, you are? Okay, well, I'll make you honorary Gosnells associate then, if that's the case. But it's very interesting, very good. They're all around, and yeah. So.
I'm only aware because that house used to belong to Mrs. Jean Pitter, who was a very old resident in the area, and the house is absolutely immaculate. So, anyway, moving on. Any more reports of delegates? Thank you for that, Councillor Dewhurst. No? Thank you. Question time. The first question we have is from Mr. Patrick Cullen from 5 Elsie Street, Gosnells. Subject is tree policy. Thank you, Mr. Cullen. You have 2 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm honoured to be here with this esteemed group of people, and I want to congratulate you on having a tree policy. So that's a big step forward. I'm a biologist. I live in the local area. I'm a conservationist, and at some point I'd like to discuss this in more detail. But just 2 starter questions at the moment. So the first one is the council has a new tree policy with a 15% tree canopy target by 2030. Does this refer to both private land and city land, or does it just refer to like the parks and the streetscapes?
I believe it refers to just the city land, including the parks and streetscapes. But
so we could actually see a canopy decline then, as overall. Even with the tree policy.
We don't have the jurisdiction over private property at the moment to hold them accountable to keep their trees on their private property. Does that help?
Yeah, you don't have any jurisdiction. Okay.
We might
hopefully
like to, though.
That's something that can change. And the second question is, and I've started a new group called Gosnells Tree Canopy Advocates. We're asking, there's a bunch of tree canopy advocacy groups all over Perth now, and we're asking councils to have a target of 30% canopy cover by 2040, and is that something the council could consider?
We can consider it and see what that looks like, and we can give you some research back on what our research has been for our establishment of the other target that we've already set.
All right, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question is Tony Avis from Hadlow Place in Thornley, and this is about council contribution to Black Cockatoo extension.
Good evening. Yes. Does the council accept any responsibility for the ongoing destruction and loss of critical black cockatoo feeding and roosting habitat? And where does the buck stop in regard to protecting known sites from blanket destruction?
I'm going to get the Director for Planning to answer this, as he knows all of the planning regulations down to T, and he'll be able to give you a technical response for this. Thank you. Director Terrelink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When people make application for broad-scale subdivision, it's subject to environmental assessment. So if you have a structure plan proposal, say for example in parts of Southern River, that goes to state government for assessment, and the relevant environmental agencies, they look at their data sets of mapping for vegetation and known information, and from there there may be referrals necessary if there was black cockatoo habitat involved in the subject area for those applications. So, to sum that up, that means that those applications are referred at a state level and escalated as necessary if there's black cockatoo habitat involved.
Thank you, Director. Your next question.
I guess I'm not allowed to comment because I've just witnessed that didn't happen. And a particular block in Southern River, lot 1798 Matteson Street, I observed that it was critical feeding habitat used daily for many hours by a significant number of black cockatoos. And I tried to, okay, it's not written down, so I can't ask, but all efforts failed. Can you check, it has been cleared, can you check that if the conservation wetland part has been protected along with a 50-metre buffer zone? As from what I've seen, the whole block has been cleared totally. And how can we stop the same happening to the cockatoo roost on lot 1516 Leslie Street, just opposite?
Thank you. We'll get Director Terrelink to respond to that as well. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We can take that on notice and respond to you in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Avis, sorry. The next question is Wendy Blake from 25 Elvington Way, Thornley, and it's regarding black cockatoo habitat.
Evening all. It's again about black cockatoos, which are endangered and becoming probably critically endangered in the next decade if we don't do something really fast. My question to Council is, can you tell us what policies, initiatives and local laws do you have to protect black cockatoos?
I'll get Director Terrelink to respond to this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I tried to give a bit of a potted summary of how the legislation works around black cockatoos in the previous answer.
Did you want to re-elaborate that again for the...
I don't understand.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs Blake. If you could just sum that up again, please, Director. Thank you.
Thank you. When applications are made that affect habitat areas, they're referred to state and, if necessary, to federal government for assessment. And from there, the issues are explored more fully.
And whose that's a secondary question. Whose responsibility is it, please?
It's the state government because they have the EPA that will give them advice on that. So we take a lot of advice from them when we're approving things. Yeah, your next question?
My next question is, how many black cockatoo roosting sites have been cut down with council approval in the last decade?
Thank you, Director Terrelink.
Offhand, Madam Mayor, as I recall, none.
You wouldn't include Brixton wetlands?
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor, in terms of the roosting habitat that was identified at Brixton and near the Roe Highway Business Park, the roosting trees were preserved, as I understand it, and to the satisfaction of the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs Blake. There are no more questions in the statement. A public statement from Mr David Murphy from 84 Combine Loop Martin. regarding item number 13. What is it?
I'd first like to thank the CEO, Director of Infrastructure and Councillor Dewhurst for meeting with myself and various estate residents last Thursday afternoon. At this meeting, we were provided with 2 proposed ideas of playground equipment that could be installed, as well as the proposed and discussed locations within the reserve of where it would be located. The residents have thought of both options and love both that are presented and are torn of which way to go. As further discussed with the CEO in the meeting, disappeared. Sorry, as further discussed with the CEO in the meeting, we have been pushing for the equipment to be installed here at Lumen Rise Reserve, as we are somewhat cut off from other local parks, as we have more of an isolated housing estate to others. Even with the proposed equipment to be installed in the park, there is comments in the agenda of the park being possibly asset heavy. We don't seem to think this is valid, as there'll be no grass open space or any open grass space lost from the ideas put forward. If council were to support this fully for it to be budgeted, you would have many very happy residents, young families and children in the Lumen Rise estate. We would hope with budget approval, if it's accepted, it could be installed as early as possible in the new financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Murphy. Moving on to the confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths and Councillor McDonald to second that. Is there any debate or questions? No? Thank you, councillors. If you could please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Moving on to receiving of petitions and presentations. Are there any? None this evening, thank you. Are there any applications for leave of absence? No, thank you. There are no questions of which due notice has been given, and we'll move on to item number, there's no reports of committee meetings, and moving on to item number 13.1.1, the transport position statement, Sevenoaks Street. Can I get a mover? Councillor Baines to move that. Councillor Dewhurst to second it. Councillor Baines, would you like to speak to this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the transport position statement for Sevenoaks Street in Beckenham to remove its Blue Road status. Duplication of Sevenoaks Street is simply not required for most of the traffic in the area. There's just not enough volume for them. But most importantly, the impacts on local residents would be huge. So their quiet, leafy street where they walk their kids to school would be transformed into a barren and busy highway, not to mention losing half of their front yards. So I ask you to support the staff recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. Councillor Dewhurst, is there anybody that would like to speak against the motion? No? Anyone else for the motion then? Deputy Mayor Hort, and then Councillor Good, and then Councillor Griffiths. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and well said, Councillor Baines. I just wanted to add to the point around our tree canopy. We've got targets. We're hopefully working towards them, and there is a significant canopy along there that would come under threat if we were to make this road wider. It's not needed, and that would be an unnecessary cost.
Councillor Good, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I want to also endorse Councillor Baines' comments, but in particular also congratulate City staff for the arguments of combating, if you like, the City of Canning with regards to this road. I know it's been ongoing for quite a long time, so to actually get an actual commissioned an SMEC to conduct a travelling modelling study and to arguably get the data to prove that we didn't need it, that's great. So congratulations to staff for doing that, and well spoken, Councillor Baines. Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths?
Yes, I guess we all know that road, and it does not carry the traffic. There's not a big pool of population there. The population simply isn't going to grow, and it's a waste of money, and it's absolute sense not to do that. So everybody, let's support the motion. Thank you.
There are no further. I'll ask Councillor Baines if she would like to close. Nothing further. Thank you. If you could please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Moving on to item 13.1.2, the play equipment at Lumen Rise Estate. Can I get a mover? Councillor Dewhurst, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Hort. Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst, would you like to speak to this?
I don't think I have to ask the councillors to support this because I've heard everyone talk that they have certainly something needs to be done there, and it's a very beautiful little pocket there of houses, and we had a actually great walk down the. And I urge everyone to have a look if you haven't looked, but between the two housing estates down there in Martin, the beautiful tree walk along the river, and there's a couple of issues down there which our CEO and the Director of Infrastructure has taken on to fix, and I think it'll be absolutely wonderful. That little park, get a bit of shade there. I do feel for them. There is literally no shade there for them, and it will bake during the summer. It was hot there that day when we were there. It will be nice to be able to sit down and under some shade and discuss it. But yeah, just ask you each all to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been my pleasure to work with the Lumen Rise residents over many years to look at this, and my apologies for not being able to attend the CEO's walk around. I think what we have here is the opportunity to model what development by the river can look like, and it is an excellent development, but the lack of park infrastructure is a significant loss. There's significant assets and land that runs next to the river in a parallel to Lumen Rise, which would be nice for us to see activate as much as we can, but in the absence of that, I think this reserved public open space can be managed hopefully with a better bit of equipment. So I'm looking forward to this coming through in the 23-24 budget. I support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the item? Anyone else for the item? No, thank you. If you could please cast your vote. It's my new technique. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Moving on to item 13.2.1, the draft local planning policy for precinct plans final adoption. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Adams to move this, Councillor Patterson to second this. Councillor Adams, do you want to speak to the item? Councillor Patterson? No? Any further? No, thank you. If you want to cast your vote, please. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Moving on to item 13.4.1, the History and Heritage Advisory Group meeting on the 9th of February 2023. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Good to move this, Councillor Adams to second this. Councillor Good, would you like to speak to the item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You spoke at the very beginning of the meeting that the passing away of Chris Beckett, and I just want to let everyone know that he was a very strong contributor to the History and Heritage Advisory Group, and he had a huge passion for the history of the city. His knowledge was right up there with the best of anybody, and a sad loss for the group. And in terms of what he contributed, he was so deeply involved in so many things around the city. His, again, knowledge, and of course his work with the Men's Shed, but on the History and Heritage Group, sad to see his passing.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to move an amendment which reads, I, Councillor Serena Williamson, propose the following, that an additional recommendation be included as follows, that Council requests the CEO to explore grant funding opportunities for a second edition of the Gosnells story for the following reasons, that grant funding was received for the first edition, and if the city was to fully fund the cost of the second edition without grant funding, it would likely cost about $55,000.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. I'm happy to second that. Did you want to speak further on the item?
Thank you. Councillors, I just ask you to support this motion because at the moment the History and Heritage Committee has made an item note requesting that this be budgeted out of the 2023-24 budget funds, which for us to do that we would need to address something within a council meeting. So I think exploring grant funding as a first option is a good idea for ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Is there anybody that wants to speak against the item? Anyone for the item? Thank you, Councillor Good.
Yes, I was very, very actually pleased to see this amendment come through and to explore the grant funding opportunities, and obviously as per the agenda item to do the Gosnells story update. For those who've read the book, the Gosnells story with Gil MacDonald being one of the co-authors, it's a very impressive book, and it's time when you think about 1988, so it's been many, many years and so many things have developed and changed, and the population itself has probably grown by in excess of 60,000 people. So the history of the city does need to be upgraded. It is a shame, though, that we'd lost a couple of years where we had a bit of research done, but it just wasn't good enough. So I support the amendment to seek grant funding and got to keep history up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Good. Any further comment? No, if you could please cast your vote on the amendment, please. Thank you, councillors. That amendment has been carried. Now we'll put that back with the original item. Is there any further debate on the original item? No, councillors, if you could please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Item number 13.5.1, the financial activity statement for January 2023. Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Zhang, seconded by Councillor MacDonald. Any debate or questions on this item? Councillor Good.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's actually rare that I'll make a comment regarding the financial activity statements, but this one I thought I would because capital expenditure, we're pretty much right up there year to date. It's not bad at all, and often we've had a struggle with the timing issue. So I thought it was appropriate that after so many months we're tracking reasonably well to budget, and that's good. And obviously, as you read the graph, we've got a fair bit to pump out in the next 6 months, but the fact that we're pretty much on board for the capital, I'm pretty pleased, so well done.
Thank you, councillor Good. Any further debate? Councillors, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.2, the payment of accounts for January 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Adams, Councillor Griffiths. Any debate, questions? Thank you. Please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Item number 13.5.3, the 2022 annual electors meeting. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor MacDonald. Any debate on this item, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Item number 13.5.4, the 2023 local government elections. Can I get a mover? Deputy Mayor Hort, seconded by Councillor Baynes. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't believe the increase in cost that has been quoted to us, but such is the nature of a market where there is only one provider. Hopefully that's something that can be addressed in the future. One thing, I mentioned it as a question in the earlier briefing, but I just wanted to put it out there on the record that one of the biggest challenges in each election is Australia Post, another monopoly. And it's really difficult for the people who elect a council to get their postal vote in time, in my experience. You generally have to have a pretty quick turnaround if you want to get the mailman to get it back to the city in time. So I just want to formally request that the city explores other mechanisms by which residents and ratepayers can submit their postal ballots, whether that's a library, all the libraries, or other mechanisms. I think it's something that we need to look at to make sure that our residents and ratepayers feel equipped to respond to our call to vote. So looking forward to seeing what can be explored in that matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm about to clarify that, I think, but point of order, carry on. Go on.
Point of order only, I think that may be an amendment because of the way that the wording's written in the first recommendation is actually to clearly determine it's a postal vote, Bob.
Right, a reply, if I may. I mean,
still be a postal vote, so that's
It's still
fine.
a postal vote, but at the moment, everyone has the right to submit their ballots to the Civic Centre. I'd like to see that extended to more than one location for the
Okay,
Civic
can I-
Centre. So it's still a postal ballot.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to clarify something with the CEO for
Oh,
one
yeah, of
second.
course.
Thank you. The CEO, as you've said that you wanted as a formal request, whether we need an amendment for that, but he's happy to accept that as it is. If council, I don't think we need a formal request as such, and we will be happy to, CEO's happy to look into that unless you want to do an amendment for it. Thank you. Councillor Good.
Well, I was going to raise a point of order on the point of order by saying you've got to rule on the point of order before
Thank
you
you,
get
Councillor
interrupted.
Good.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I was going to say.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst.
Just a couple of questions, be it now 2023. Can you give us an update in regards to electronic voting for elections? I know we've been working on it for a long time, and where the state is at with that?
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Mr CEO, thank you.
There is no plan for electronic voting in the new legislative provisions that have been recently introduced to Parliament.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Hort, because it is an absolute disgrace that it can go up by double, and would like to propose that we have a conversation, Councillor Good and myself as a zone representatives, to actually bring this up at zones, that this is an issue. The fact that it's a monopoly, the fact there's a lack of choice, but I also just think it's a poor use of resources for it to cost that much money. So, yeah, have a conversation with Councillor Good and we'll see about bringing that up at zones.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any further? Thank you, Councillor Good. You have a question? No, you had only called a point of order. That's okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
You're enjoying yourself tonight, Madam Mayor. Look, actually, I'm totally supportive of the view, the fact that we've got to take it to the zone level, and also totally support Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort's point about the massive increase in costs. And I'm really glad you've raised it, because at 59% increase in costs since 2019, when you think about it, $425,000 to run an election, and then in 2 years' time, arguably more, you think of how many parks and gardens that we have to maintain and do, and to fund this, we have to increase rates to do those sorts of things. So it's like, there's got to be a better way. So, and Councillor Dewhurst raised the point about electronic voting. Yeah, the day that comes in, I'll be thrilled to bits, because it's a seriously archaic way of doing it. So if we can do something, happy to take it to zone, and we argue profusely with Welga, sharpen your pencil, or we should be able to do something else, if it means change the state laws so we can do it. But I get the point that we also must make sure the integrity of the system is foolproof, or as foolproof as it can be, meaning that we aren't seen to be running ourselves. But it's got to be a lot cheaper than that. That's just extraordinarily expensive in any way. So thank you for raising it.
Any further debate on this item? Councillors, if you could please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Item number 13.5.5, the tender for 24-2022 illuminated street signs. Councillor Patterson to move that. Councillor Good to second that. Councillor Patterson, any debate on this? No? Okay, councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Adams, you have an item of interest here. Item number 13.5.6, the tender for 25-2022 security patrol and guard services. Councillor Griffiths to move that. Councillor Williamson to second that. Councillor Griffiths, do you have any? Councillor Williamson? Anyone else? No. Thank you, councillors. If you please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Just wait for Councillor Adams to come back in. Thank you, Councillor Adams. That item was carried. Moving on to item 13.5.7, the City of Gosnells Bushfire Brigade Local Law 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Dewhurst to move this. Councillor Adams to second this. Councillor Dewhurst, no comment. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'll keep it short, but I think, look, I'm enormously disappointed at the timing of this letter. We received a letter in January from the Commissioner for DFES advising that there's some significant legal issues with how we run our bushfire brigade. It's just, it's really strange timing for something that hadn't, nothing necessarily had changed where we couldn't have been made aware of this sooner. So I think well done to the city for such a quick turnaround on a bit of local law and getting it into a point where we can consider it tonight. Fully support, but also disappointed at how this has come across to us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. Any further debate, questions? Councillors, if you please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. There is an item of urgent business, 15.1.1, which is the tender for 14/20/22 Cassidy Pavilion extension and refurbishment. Can I get a mover for this, please, councillor?
We sort of need to move that council consent to it first, so that's the first move.
Okay. Okay. So the first move is that we're doing the recommendation that, I might just read this out for the, that council, in light of the consent of the presiding member, that's me, grants permission to present an item of urgent business to the agenda relating to tender 14/2022 Cassidy Pavilion and extension and refurbishment to this ordinary council meeting in accordance with clause 4.14 of the City of Gosnells Standing Orders Local Law 2016. I have a mover, the Deputy Mayor Hort, seconder, Councillor Williamson, and we will cast our vote on that. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. Now we'll move back to the item number, the tender, which is 14/2022 Cassidy Pavilion extension and refurbishment, and mover was Councillor Dewhurst and seconder was Deputy Mayor Hort. Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is a great result. I'd just like to congratulate the staff for their hard work. It's been a long time coming, and I remember, I can't remember who, but someone sitting around these tables said it would never happen, that the government would cough up an extra bit of money, so which they did, so I'm glad they did, and yeah, well done to the staff, and well done to yourself for writing that letter, and the advocacy from the CEO and yourself, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations to all, Madam Mayor, for the initial idea to take this back to the state government as well. Look, I think I agree with everything that Councillor Dewhurst has said, but just want to add on there a big thank you to Chris Talentire, who's a member of Thornley. This was his election commitment, and he has advocated for this to be increased significantly. So thank you, Mr. Talentire.
I'd just like to say a few words in knowing that this was an election commitment, and it's great that the state government have recognised that costs have gone up and that they are willing to come back and contribute to this and not just leave it for us to fund. So thank you very much, yes, to Mr Chris Talentire and the state government and the Minister, the Honourable David Templeman, who I received the letter from today. So it was great to receive that letter after being prolonged for so long. So we're very happy to receive that. Councillors, if there's is there any further debate on the item? No, councillors, will you please cast your vote. Thank you, that has been carried. There is a confidential item, so we will vote to close, don't we? Move to close the council, Councillor Williamson to move that and Deputy Mayor Hort to second that, and councillors, if you please cast your vote on that. Okay, meeting closed at 7:40.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, if no one's making any comments.
Declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.